Hi, and welcome to Kenshi. In my last video, I trained my bonedog John to be able to solo the Bugmaster, and at the time, I planned for that to be the end of the playthrough. However, eventually I decided that the story of Kihaku and John wasn't quite over yet, and that I wanted to go a bit further and take down the Bugmaster's ancient enemy, Mad Cat-Lon. I did actually showcase John 1v1ing Cat-Lon at the end of my last video, but this time I also want to take on Cat-Lon's army of stormthralls, for which I'm going to need to build up an army of my own. But before I get started with that, I have a couple of preparations to make, starting with turning in the Bugmaster for his bounty. Next, I want to start training Kihaku's crossbow skill. So I got a Gorillo from Vane, and if I drop him inside of this ruined building, then once he gets up, the Gorillo isn't able to leave the house, while Kihaku isn't actually able to shoot the Gorillo. But at the same time, she's still gaining crossbow and perception experience. So I'm just going to leave this AFK for a while, until her stats are good enough for what I have planned. After a little time AFK, my perception is now at 90, and my crossbows is at 78, which should be more than enough. I sent John out hunting so that I wouldn't have to keep him fed while I AFK'd, so I'm just going to call him back now and head off to our next destination, Mongrel. In Mongrel, I snuck into the ranger shop to steal a better crossbow and joined the shinobi thieves to buy a backpack that wouldn't decrease my combat stats. And with all that done, I can finally start recruiting. My plan is to recruit all of what I'm calling the legendary animals of Kenshi, which are essentially unique animals which can be found in specific parts of the map, starting with the Megaraptor up in Raptor Island. To get to the island, I'm going to need to cross this body of water, which, even at max speed, is painfully slow. So the island is populated by these relatively weak, non-hostile swamp raptors. The one I'm interested in is located in this ruin, which is the much larger Megaraptor. So as we can see, the Megaraptor does significantly less damage than John, and also attacks much slower. However, due to its massive health pool, it's still able to take quite a bit of punishment before going down. In case you want to recruit the Megaraptor on one of your own saves that doesn't have a high-level bonedog, I found that you can sneak into this elevated corner and crossbow attack the Megaraptor without it being able to attack you back. So hypothetically, you could even do this on a character with 0 crossbow skill, and slowly but surely bleed it out. So I'm just going to heal up the Megaraptor to make sure it doesn't die. And with it now healed up, we begin the long process of hauling its body back to Mongrel so that we can recruit it. Now that I'm back in Mongrel, all I have to do is toss the Megaraptor in one of these cages, and thanks to the Tame Beasties mod, I'm able to talk to the Megaraptor and ask it to join me. And just like that, we have our third party member. After giving the Megaraptor a bit of time to recover, we can now look at its stats. So, on the offensive side, 71 strength is pretty good, but the rest are pretty middling, being in the low to high 50s. However, the real reason I wanted to recruit this guy was because of its insanely high health values for all of its limbs being over 1,000, and its blood health value being over 2,000 at max level. In order to maximize that, I want to train its toughness using a method that I showed in my previous video. So I found one of the fog death yards, and all I'm going to do is put the Megaraptor on one of these prisoner poles. I'm going to pick the lock so that I can easily free it later, and I'm just going to run away. And eventually what's going to happen is one of these hive princes will wander along, and start eating the Megaraptor. So this does give us passive toughness experience, and because the Megaraptor has so much health, it's gonna be a long time before I have to remove it from the prisoner pool in order to stop it from dying. After eating through the Megaraptor's legs and forelegs, the hivemen move on to the chest, which is where it gets dangerous because damage to the chest will eventually kill the Megaraptor. So, in order to save the Megaraptor, all I need to do is set him free with Kihaku, and I'll just let her run away back to Mongrel. And from here, John and the Megaraptor should be able to take care of this horde of Fogmen on their own. The Megaraptor, now with 91 toughness, is only taking less than 10 damage per hit. Granted, these Fogmen aren't exactly the strongest enemies, but without any armor, that's still an impressive damage threshold to meet. So now I'm just gonna take it back to Mongrel and have it rest up till it's full health again. A lot of time and bandages later, the Megaraptor is now fully healed, and we are ready to head off to find our next recruit to the east in Howler's Maze. We made it to Howler's Maze on the far east side of the map, and in this little ruin in the middle of the island, we can see our next recruit, the Megacrab. So Kihaku is currently being melted by the acid rain, so I'm just gonna park her in this little building on Sneak and have John and the Megaraptor take on the Megacrab. And after a short fight, the Megacrab goes down pretty easy. So I'm just gonna heal it up and make sure to pick it up before it wakes up from unconsciousness, and then put it back down to reset its unconscious timer. And now that it's fully healed up, I'm gonna take it to the nearest prisoner cage, which should be in this South Stone Camp. So here at the South Stone Camp, I'm just going to do the same thing I did with the Megaraptor. I'm going to put the crab inside one of these cages and talk to it to recruit it. So looking at its stats, like the Megaraptor, not the most amazing offensively, with its strength and dexterity in the 40s and 50s, but with its large health pool in its limbs, I think it'll be just fine if we put it on tank duty. Which means going all the way back to Mongrel to do some toughness training. Like I did with John and the Megaraptor, I brought the Megacrab back to the Fog Islands to train its toughness with the hivers. Once I was done with that, I freed it to give him a little test run against the Fogmen. And one thing I noticed was that it got this nice little area of effect on all of its attacks, which I can only assume is amplified due to it being much larger than a regular crab. Anyways, I'm back at Mongrel, and the Megacrab is just about fully healed up. So now I can start on the next leg of the journey, which is south in the bone fields. One downside of having an all-animal squad is that they eat a lot. So all three of these guys have a 2x racial hunger rate from being animals, and the Megaraptor has a 3.56 age hunger rate multiplier, and the Megacrab has an age multiplier of 2.25. I'm not sure exactly how the math works out, but essentially I'm feeding an entire platoon of soldiers with only 4 squad members. So when I'm traveling, my inventory has to look like this. We've reached our destination, Morn, And for our next recruit, we're going to be breaking into this abandoned HQ building. I'm just going to send Kihaku up to try and lure the Gorillo downstairs to have the rest of the squad finish him off. And again, I just need to first aid it so that it doesn't die. And once it's fully patched up, I just need to put it in one of these cages conveniently off to the side here. And with that, we have our 5th recruit. So looking at this thing's stats, it has 189 strength, 110 toughness, and 190 dexterity, although it only has 31 martial arts, which also contributes to its attack damage. Thankfully, with 110 toughness, it shouldn't need any additional training. The downside is that its limb health is a lot lower than the other two. The other downside is that this thing has a 5 times racial hunger rate, so I'm going to be spending a lot more money keeping my whole squad fed. And after stocking up on food one last time, it's time to start heading further east to Stobe's Gamble, the King Gorillo. He's in a similar ruin to where we found the Megaraptor, so I'm just going to use the same strategy, or exploit I guess, of standing in this little corner up here and shooting him with a crossbow. I think it's just a bit more convenient this way than having my animals swim over and fight him physically. And from here, I'm just going to take pot shots at the Gorillo with Kihaku's crossbow. Now that he's knocked out, again, I'm just going to first aid him to make sure he doesn't die. So now we just pick him up and take him back to Moor. So now we just need to drop this guy in the cage and we can recruit him. So looking at the King Gorillo's stats, it has only 82 strength and 82 dexterity, but it also has a lot more martial arts at 90, so it should be doing fairly similar damage to the Great White Gorillo. It also has slightly less toughness at only 90, but it makes up for that in the fact that its limbs have significantly more HP than the Great White Gorillo. So overall, it should be slightly more tanky, but do slightly less damage than the Great White Gorillo. And after grouping up the whole squad, we now head south to the Royal Valley. Now I am at the Southern Hive, and all I'm going to do is swing around to the left here, behind the actual city itself. So what I'm looking for is one of these prisoner poles, and this time Kihaku is going to be the one jumping on it. So I'm just going to pick the locks that I can escape easily, and all that's left is to wait. So here we can see what is going to be our final recruit, King, and he is easily one of the most overpowered characters in Kenshi, thanks to his ridiculous 2.4 stat multiplier. With everyone that we've recruited so far, we should just about be strong enough to take him down. So I'm going to have everyone attack, and I'm going to have Kihaku free herself so that she can also join in on the fight. And without taking too much damage, my squad was able to take down King. So now we're gonna reverse the roles on King by putting him in the prisoner pool, and with the same dialogue as the Gorillos, we have our final recruit. King is something called a Crimper, which is a sort of mechanized Gorillo thing, and as far as I know, he's the only one in the game. So I don't think the fight earlier completely did it justice, but this guy is completely ridiculous, having 728 strength, 153 toughness, and 362 dexterity, as well as 72 in his martial arts. In a regular playthrough, this guy is easily able to destroy entire armies on his own. And with him as our last recruit, the only thing left is to head to the Ashlands to take down Cat-Lon. So here we are at the heart of the Ashlands, and inside of this ash dome is an army of 120 stormthralls. I'm just gonna have Kihaku and John aggro the horde, and from there, I'll just let the battle play out on its own. So the fighting has more or less died down, and looking at my squad's health, they all seem almost completely full. Surprisingly, it seems like the Megacrab was actually the top performer against Cat-Lon's army, due to the large area of effect on its attacks. Because of that, I think it's only fair that I give the Megacrab the honor of fighting Cat-Lon himself. And like that, the last remnants of the Second Empire are extinguished by a crab, of all things. I had a lot of fun making this video, but after however many playthroughs, there's only so many ways to keep Kenshi fresh and interesting. So if you have any ideas you'd like to see turned into a video, I'd appreciate if you could leave a comment down below. Anyways, that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching.